Previously, there was only one behavior to Jiren's 5LL. It would advance Jiren a little bit, but it was fairly stubby compared to some other 5LLs that had some forward movement in the game. At point-blank range against the opponent, you'd be able to use it as an anti-reflect-proof string. But if you're spaced out just a little bit back, then it had a tendency to whiff in these situations, putting Jiren at risk. Now, if you hold forward while you're inputting your 5LL, Jiren will advance a little bit farther. That's the normal range. And that's the improved range. With this buff, it should mean that Jiren is able to use this consistently to check reflex. In fact, you can even get some situations like that where you get double reflected. So it's a nice buff for Jiren's pressure, meaning that he doesn't have to worry about necessarily getting reflect mind gamed and whiff punish for going for 5LL. Additionally, it also means that he has more effective range for his full light auto combo, which the third attack has anti-air frames on. Again, giving him more flexibility and control in neutral. Let's take a look at the new damage on 5LLL. A pretty substantial increase, roughly around 400 damage. Because of this change, as well as its increased base damage, this means that Jiren players are more often than not comboing into this in the middle of their combos now, especially in mid-screen, and this will combine nicely with another change that we're going to talk about way later in the video. Jiren's full light auto combo, 5LLL, has increased damage on the third hit as well as increased base damage. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. It used to be 930 damage raw, and thus in combos, this would scale down quite a bit. Standing medium tech also has a buff to its delay. Previously, the move itself took about 29 frames to complete on whiff. On block, it was -6, so technically unsafe. If your opponent had a 7-frame jab, then you were safe, but against 6-frame jabs, this was technically an unsafe stagger. Though pressing against Jiren where you can reverse beat into his 2L, I mean, that's a scary call to make if you're asking me. Let's take a look at the new delay on standing medium attack. It takes about 28 frames for it to complete, and it's now -5 on block. So it's a 1-frame difference, but this means that now Jiren has a new safe stagger option for himself. 5L, 2L have always been safe. 2M is still unsafe, but now 5M is. So if you burn your 2L early in a block string, you can now just also add 5M into your safe stagger tool repertoire box. So it's nice, it's there, but that's pretty much all that this change leads up to, I think. Let's take a look at the old hit stop when the opponent blocked Jiren's standing unique attack. Previously, Jiren here was -10. And now for what the hit stop on an opponent's guard looks like in the new patch. -5. So now Jiren's 5S is also a safe on block stagger option for himself. He's got new 2 options to safely end his pressure and try and start all over again against the opponent, which is a nice change, but kind of a nutty one. Jiren was already a really good stagger normal character, so the fact that he now has new tools just pushes them up into a league of his own, I would argue. All versions of Infinity Rush now have increased stun time when they're not in animation. I presume that this means that the light version in general has more stun time to it, and the medium and heavy versions, when you use them outside of a smash launcher, will also have more stun time. So let's go ahead and examine the stun time previously. 24 frame advantage here for Jiren. So we're going to have to burn our smash launcher like this. 24 frame advantage as well. And 24 frame advantage as well here for Jiren. Let's take a look at the new stun time on Infinity Rushes. 25 frame advantage there. 25 there as well. As well as there. So it's looks like about like a 1-frame difference potentially if we're trusting this measurement unit that I'm using, and if it's even the correct one. I think that this basically just means it should be more reliable for you to use Infinity Rush at some higher hit stun scale combos, and then be able to link into things like assist or a tag to then get a Dragon Rush knockdown, or even some sparking cancel stuff. This is just like here to really help him out, I think, when it comes to some higher hit stun scaling. So if there's a particular Jiren player that can point out what sort of combo routes are now better for Jiren or don't fail anymore because of this buff, let us know in the comments below. Let's take a look at Shock Tornado, Jiren's counter that only beats low attacks. You would generally use this in a couple of instances, namely your stagger pressure to catch the opponent's reaction by baiting them into doing something, realizing that you gave up your turn just to punch them in the face by the time they reacted to it, or in some combos that allow Jiren to use it as a frame kill to recover from some things faster. So let's go ahead and explore this in a couple of contexts. So Shock Tornado Medium used to take about 26 frames to recover. I'm getting some variance in timing, I think, just because of some other things going on underneath the hood with my inputs. But if we cancel into this from normals, you were negative 14 off of 5L, negative 10 off of your mediums, so 2L, 5M, and 2M. And, you know, I know that 2L isn't scaled like a medium anymore, but I'm going to call it out since it shares a lot of other properties with medium normals. Off of 2S, you were also negative 10, as well as off of your 5H. And 2H, so pretty much negative 10 off of everything except 5L previously. And like I mentioned earlier, there was some combo utility you had with this move when you were close to the corner and you wanted to do a side swap. It could be a little tricky to time, though. But once you got it down, you were pretty set. However, it generally required Jiren to get to particular distances from the corner. Like if you immediately hit it, I needed to actually do a super jump there in order to catch that timing. Definitely a little finicky, and the spacing didn't really set you up for success here. Let's take a look at the new reduced delay of Medium Shock Tornado. Pretty significant, actually. The lowest that we've been able to see is 24 frames, so this looks like about a 3 to 4 frame difference. Let's test it off as normals now. 5L is now negative 11. And all of his mediums that we've been able to look at, negative 7, negative 7, negative 7, negative 7, of course, and negative 2, thanks to the buff off of his 5S. So this actually kind of changes a bit of Jiren's stagger game as well, meaning that you should be able to actually get even like some better frame traps going on here with the opponent, allowing Jiren to attack sooner. And thus, you know, if the opponent is reacting faster, maybe this is even better against some of those opponents that recognize it. It also means that there is about a 1 frame window for a not a 6L, but a 6-frame jab to actually catch Jiren in these instances, making this even safer option than it was before against people that are like immediately mashing. Of course, you will still get hit. The opponent's instantly mashing, but if they were trying to jump out or something like that, you still can't quite catch them doing it immediately, but you should be able to more reliably catch people like as they realize that you went into a Shock Tornado Medium. Let's go ahead and look at the combo utility now. Generally speaking, this means that Jiren should have a little bit of easier time picking up some of these links thanks to the fact that now he recovers from Shock Tornado faster. So you get a little bit more leniency in some combo routings like this, which I think Jiren appreciates, though he has another change that is definitely more beneficial to some of his combo routing, but we're getting to it. Grand Charge actually has a very interesting change to it. This move largely didn't see a whole lot of use within Jiren's toolkit. It's nice to use as sort of like a short range and a projectile tool, and as a way to force up a -2 on block situation. Since then you could, you know, RPS with your 4-frame counter here, or just take your turn again if the opponent was scared of that said counter. However, outside of that, like, you just didn't really get to see it used too often. It didn't have too much combo utility here for Jiren, since on hit you were only +5, so you couldn't actually link off of this. And against an airborne opponent, the same was true. So just because of that, you could technically use this as like a stubby anti-projectile tool, but why would you do that when you have a really good 5S, you have a projectile counter, as well as just, you know, everything else going on in Jiren's toolkit? So you didn't really see a lot of high-level Jirens use Grand Charge outside of like some gimmicky pressure reset situations. Now, if you hold down the special button while you're inputting Grand Charge, you can actually cause Jiren to charge the move. And this changes a couple of things. For starters, it delays the startup because you're charging it, but look at the frame advantage. Instead of being -2 off of the 14-frame startup uncharged Grand Charge, now, off of the 26-frame startup fully charged move, which isn't too bad for startup, by the way, it's now +4 on block, giving Jiren a way to reset offense and yet adds another layer into his offensive mind games for the opponent to consider. Additionally, you also increase the range. That's the light version, or the uncharged version, excuse me. And this is the charge version. Nearly full screen, but not quite. The whole time that you're charging this as well, you are immune to projectiles, making it a great anti-zoning tool. So, any given moment, you can kind of just charge this and not worry about most of your opponent's assist calls or any special moves. You still have to be on the lookout for some normal attacks, though, but depending on the matchup, that might not even be a factor that you necessarily have to consider. And of course, as I was exploring earlier, the uncharged version is only +5 on hit, so you can't actually pick anything up. The charged version, though, is +11 on hit, giving you links. And of course, this just adds a whole bunch of new combo theory for Jiren to play around with, and there's tons of ways for you to actually add this in to your combo game. You also know that the damage increases. Uncharged version does 1200, and the charged version does 1400, so an increase of 200 damage. Now, let's look at where we can link this. Off of a 2M, it's looking a little bit dour, even if we get some extra height, but off of 5S, then it works out pretty well for us here. Now, with everything here considered, the charged version of Grand Charge is actually a TOD starter, and there's some spots where we can fit a charge, Grand Charge, and then combo afterwards, meterlessly, into his combo structure. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those examples. Courtesy of Big Chap Alien, we have some proof of concept of using the fully charged version of Grand Charge against some small characters. So it kind of explains it a little bit more here, but let's take a look at this combo route. You can do a couple of loops of this, actually, against small characters when you lose a delay. And, I mean, look at the damage that you get. Granted, this is off of a Grand Charge starter. And it's a 2-bar TOD as well. So if you get caught by this, and if the Jiren player is able to execute something like this, you're in some big, big, big trouble. Now, there's definitely more things to play around with here, but I kind of like shown the extent of it of like, hey, there's some options right here. But there's another change that we have to talk about next that has an even bigger impact for Jiren's combo structure. Now, debatably more practically when it comes to utilizing Jiren's Grand Charge in a combo route, most of the time you're probably going to be looking at a combo that looks something like this, courtesy of Bobby Dorf. Now, there's obviously a lot of character-specific things going on in here, but level 1 into another level 1 should get the kill. Oh, and it ends with that? That's actually spicy. I like that a lot. But yeah, using the Grand Charge in that instance is probably where you're going to see more applications of this change for Jiren in his combo structure. I would argue that the biggest change for Jiren in this patch comes to counter impact. We have to take a look at the old version of this move. It's a counter from Jiren that would be able to absorb physical hits but not trigger, but if you use an assist or a projectile, Jiren would then track to the opponent's location and, teleport in on them. So if I set something like this up, now this is all well and good. You got a decent chunk of bar for this hit, but generally to get pickups off of this, you needed to either call an assist that would be able to combo in this situation or spend a bar to vanish. And all this was fine, but it kind of just led to this being sort of like a, counter-neutral tool. If you saw the opponent was revving up something in neutral that Jiren could counter with this move, then that's sort of where you would use it. And of course, there was ways to make it safer, like pairing it with like some invincible assist, since you can call assist during it. But that was pretty much the end of this move's utility. One theme that we've discussed with this patch is making moves that were only counter moves, such as hits 5S and JS, actual combo tools as well, carries over to Jiren, and I think he is our second example of such a change being the case, and we got one more iconic example coming up in a couple of characters. Now, Counter Impact has a few changes that buff its use as a combo tool. For starters, if Jiren holds down the button, he will now just attack. Now, this is a bit of a gimmick. You can still do things like crouch, I believe, to make this a void, but you can definitely 2H the move. Let me just double check the crouching aspect of it. It will work on you if you are crouching, and if you are jumping around, it will track to you. You can counter vanish it to deal with it, though granted Jiren can also vanish out of this, I believe. You know, so if he sees you vanish, he can counter with his own vanish during the vanish freeze frames. Additionally, if you're chilling here, you can 2H this move. So something like this, hopefully we get the timing correct. It is going to be a little weird to set up. So, you know, you can make it whiff an instance like this. You can anti-air him out of this, obviously, and whatnot. You could probably even hit him out of this normally. I actually want to double check that since I didn't see the anti-air come out. Yeah, no, you have to like anti-air this with 2H. So you have ways of checking this move. It's not like a gimmicky, oh no, what do you do now? But also, after he performs the attack, he can now execute a super dash, giving him meterless pickups off of this move. And just like we saw with hit earlier, Jiren can now trigger this counter impact when the opponent is in hit stun. So if we do something like this, and this completely opens up Jiren's combo game everywhere on screen, and it's honestly kind of cool, and I love the fact that you can now trigger this animation by your own volition. In fact, let's go ahead and look at a few examples of how you could fit this into Jiren's new combo theory. Courtesy of Last of the Starks, we can see that Jiren now is able to get full screen conversions without spending really any meter, whereas previously he would have to use EX Infinity Rush. So, you know, get a hit right here, pick him up, bring him down. Extend 5S into Grand Charge, not Grand Charge, Counter Impact. Super Dash, and you're almost coast to coast off of this. And then, you know, design your own ender here. It does require both of your smash knockdown and smash launcher here, but Jiren also plays very well with tag. You can just do Infinity Rush, tag into another character, get your sliding knockdown with a Dragon Rush input, for example. And of course, you know, since we looked at this linking off of 5S, we have to acknowledge the fact that Jiren now has the ability to convert from his zoning meterlessly, and let's take a look at the implications of that. So now, if Jiren commits to a grounded zoning pattern, since he can't use counter impact in air, it is a ground only move for him. Now he can poke at you with 5S, go into counter impact as a built-in option select to meterlessly confirm from his zoning. And this also combos nicely off of his 5LLL buff, since, you know, that's doing more damage. Instead of super dashing here, you can grand charge, add in this nice big chunk of damage, and then continue onward. So Jiren is getting a lot more damage off of some of his more uncommon starters, and he's able to kind of sprinkle this in whenever he wants to in a lot of his combo structure, and it helps out his zoning, of course. And, you know, if he does just use counter impact as a counter move of sorts, he gets a full combo meterlessly without having to invest another resource, which improves his solo viability and makes him more efficient on your team. This is a pretty great buff for Jiren overall. The last change to go over with Jiren is to his C assist. Previously, this was the move startup. 25 frames. Certainly not bad, but this is basically a single hit beam assist for what it's worth. And while it did have the edge in terms of startup, you generally saw players either use his B assist for its projectile immune properties, as well as the fact that it could clear some other assists thanks to the grand charge that it used, or his A assist for the lockdown and easier combo extensions that it gave. So how much faster is this C assist now? 20 frame startup. Pretty fast. And don't forget, this is a 20 frame full screen key blast. This actually kind of strikes me as something that's a little bit annoying to fight against and might actually make it a fairly viable pick for an assist. However, Jiren does have two other great assists that are also up for consideration should you choose to use them. Jiren has been a strong character for the past couple of patch cycles, even after his 2L was nerfed to be a light-scaled starter. Turns out that was just, icing on top of the cake, and Jiren had a lot of other strengths, as we've been able to see time and time again with players such as KJ Pixel, using the character with great success, or Muzan, who has been crushing it online. And with this set of changes, I mean, Jiren is still staying within a very high tier spot on the tier list, if not being a top 10 character. He's got great neutral, great mix, great damage, really strong team utility. He's strong solo as well with some anchor potential if you're nasty with him like that. Like, Jiren is just a really good character in this patch, and he kind of feels like about as powerful as he comes off in the show with various changes. And I like this theme of the patch that continues with Jiren again with these counter moves, getting some utility as combo tools now as well. Jiren likes everything right here. He's strictly a buff character, and I think he's one of the best characters that you could play almost at any position in the game currently. So, Jiren the Grey, strongest of Universe 11, welcome. You're still a top tier character.